So when I'm putting together our fabric bundles, which usually have anywhere from 8 to 12 different half-yard cuts, all of the bundles are curated personally by me, and so my goal is always to have them really nicely balanced, even though I am working within one fabric line. And I just wanted to take you through the process, what goes through my mind as I'm putting these bundles together, and that will give you a lot more insight into what we're going to keep doing with our Matchmaker series. So let's take a look at, I have a couple of examples here. So first one I wanted to show you is the filigree bundle that we put together. That one was actually a part of our bundle club for the April shipment. But here you will see when I'm presented with a fabric by the fabric rep, there's a lot of different prints in the line. In this case, I don't even know how many of these are. So there's a lot of fabrics, a lot of different colors. So the first thing I always look at, I see the overall. I really love the look. I look at which colors really stand out to me that I would love to use. Now you can't really see this on this printout, but these guys here on this side are black. And then we have like a medium gray for some of them. And then we have this light gray. So I knew this was like 3 shades of gray. That will be a bit much to have in there. I loved the surprise edition of this kind of sandy taupe color. And then of course the pop of yellow. So when I put the bundle together, I decided that I wanted to have the blacks and the medium grays because the lights were going to be too much of a low volume kind of effect that so close to the lights that it wouldn't work well in the bundle. So then I knew I wanted to include the taupes and then of course the yellow. So then I start picking my fabric. So as I go through that, I pick my favorites. So I want to also balance things. So that means from the blacks, I want to choose 3. From the grays, 3. If I'm doing a 12-piece bundle, 3 taupes and 3 yellows. That was my goal. So I started picking, and let me just show you my picks. So I started with the blacks. So I started with the main print here, knowing it's a little bit charcoal gray, not fully pure black. And so that is here. And then I loved these ones that had the multicolor, so I knew I had these 3 textures. So then with my grays and my medium grays, I obviously tried to do prints that I didn't have in the blacks. So I chose the dandelions. And then I chose the other dot that is with the black dots, so not the one with the white, so one with the black dots. And then I felt like they're all kind of busy, so let me choose a basic to throw in there. So spotted in the graphite was a perfect mix. It will give me a little shade difference in the grays, and so there's a little more continuity here and having that little space to rest. So then I went on to the yellows. And started, I also wanted another large scale print, that main print. So I started with that one in the yellow. And then I had the dandelions in the yellow. That was my favorite. I felt like the ones that had so much white would just kind of diminish the yellow pop. And then so the third yellow, I chose another spotted, just so that could kind of tie together also. There's a little bit gray in it, so it really ties those two together. So then it was my taupes. Again, I wanted the seeds because I hadn't seen them only in the multi, so this was a great color. And then these guys that had the little strokelets was perfect with just a little touch of white. And then my third one was the spotted. So what this does is really nicely balanced. We have enough equal amounts of every color. So when you put all these in a quilt, it's automatically going to be nicely balanced. So let's take a look at the couple of the quilts that we made with it. The Kite Runner is the first one, which is kind of all the colors are mixed in the blocks. I used an off-white for the accent or the sashing, and then we framed it with a yellow border and then a gray main print border. So you can see when you know that the bundle is balanced, it's going to be a balanced quilt. And here's another one. This is a Zoe quilt that we made with a background, so a light background, And again, you'll see there's equal amounts of yellow. Yellow is a color that always sticks out in all quilts, and so is black, because those high contrast colors. And when you have enough of, and they're equal amounts of them, it's always going to create that perfect balance. So that was my first example, and I know you want to have another example. So I took another example of a line that we got in just recently. It's called Dawn on the Prairie, and I knew I loved it right away. But what struck me first when I looked at this was there's a lot of colors. So then I start looking for what are my favorites. I really loved these charcoal prints, because then all those beautiful colors on them really kind of made them shine. Then I looked at, okay, so then there's a brown and a little bit of a dark green, and then I really loved this kind of sagey mint green, because the olive green only had 2 fabrics, so that wasn't enough. So I knew I wanted to do these 2. And then out of the other ones, there was kind of like a pinkish red, which I didn't think that was a good match. I love this rusty red or the gold. Now, looking at these 2, the gold was kind of out there, so I knew I wanted to add this beautiful, warm, rusty red or burnt orange. So let me show you how I figured that out. But there was only 2 of them. So this is where I always dive into my basics. So I started with that dark kind of a charcoaly brown, really nice warm tone to it. And I chose 4 different prints, try to choose some large scale, some really small scale, some medium scale, and then something that's a little more spaced out. Then I chose my greens. So again, I chose a large scale, a small scale, and then a medium. But then I wanted something that was a little calmer, so I have like a tone on tone in the green. And then for the rusty oranges, I chose the 2 that was in the bundle already. And then I went to my basics and pulled different shades of those tones, a little bit darker and deeper, something with a little bit of white, because it ties with all of the light parts in the rest of the fabrics. So that was how I picked that bundle. Nicely balanced. So let's take a look at some of the quilts we made with that one. We have the Gina pattern, which was beautiful. When you space it out with the off-white background, it just looks really nice. But you can take this bundle, since it is already balanced, and put it in all of them together. So these are all Gina. And then I made a second quilt, the fractions, which is you put them all together in the quilt, and it was a beautiful result as well. So you know when you have a balanced bundle, your quilt is going to be balanced, whether you put all the colors together or if you use it with a background, maybe with one focus fabric. And so that's going to lead us into our next week's tip of the day as we go through more of the matchmaking series.